Welcome back to the Social Seller Podcast with Conor Paulsen, where we interview the world's highest quality communicators, professionals, business owners, creatives, and everything in between. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're a high quality communicator, there's a good chance you're living a lot happier life, but you're also bringing those opportunities into your life almost like a magnet. My guarantee is that on this show, we only interview people that I, one, look up to, and two, that I know are going to continue to kill the game for years to come, and I want to make sure they're on your radar. But what I've learned is by asking the best questions, we get the best responses, and that's what the highest quality communicators, our social sellers, are all about. Let's hop inside to the Social Seller Podcast. Welcome back to the Social Seller Podcast with Conor Paulsen. Now, I am so pumped because we have an intro now. Every episode, what's our guarantee, gets a little better. Now, we have someone that is especially special to me. Now, we just met for the first time officially in person. I know you have San Diego ties. Brian Esposito, you are a legend, man. You are someone that I have wanted to have a conversation with. We were fortunate enough to have one on Zoom, halfway through COVID. Yep. You are 39 years old, a founder and president of Esposito Investments, top 100 magazine as professionals in real estate, and that was literally named last week. Over 150 plus joint ventures today in over 25 industries. And I am realizing, where did my phone go? Oh, you have it for the video. So we'll just have to cut that in between. So, Brian, you're 39 years old, a United States citizen and founder and president of Esposito Intellectual Enterprises, EIE.rocks, not .com, .rocks. EIE ultimately became a holding company for over 20 years of work, business, startups, and investments. Now focusing on STEM from manufacturing, distribution, retail, hospitality, hotel development, restaurant, commercial real estate, liquor, technology, media, energy, oil and gas, telecom, aviation, space, maritime, music, TV and film, education, beauty, medical technology, security, hemp, and fashion. Now, Brian brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to any team with his drive, ethics, and passion of connecting executives around the globe. Mr. Brian Esposito, it's a pleasure to officially meet you.
What's up, Conor? You too, man.
Straight, just to start this off, I'm a digital marketer, and you know our team. That's what we're focused on. I know you are too in a lot of ways. We have not, Oscar and I are fortunate to have you here. We have never had anyone of this caliber here that has the presence, that's done the work. But what I love the most is I think Oscar and I can both agree very quickly. You are a down-to-earth dude.
Thanks, man.
And I'm excited.
That.
Let's dive in.
I'm excited too.
Because to tell you the truth, when I read this off, I had to read it off. Usually I can write this out.
I don't even. So you did it better than me.
Let's go. We're going to hop in. So I know you have ties to San Diego, and that's a big part of why you're here. You've been in nonstop meetings the last 10 days, staying over at the Pindry, one of the coolest hotels in the country. I just figured out this. I didn't realize you actually had a home here too. Mm-hmm. Where were you born and what brought you to San Diego today?
Absolutely.
How'd you get here?
So born and raised in Asbury Park, New Jersey, so Bruce Springsteen country. Families from there, that area, also Long Branch and Asbury. So right on the Jersey Shore, about an hour south of Manhattan. And I originally started in the beauty industry. So in the late 90s, I built the first B2B, B2C e-commerce platform for beauty supplies. Only because I did not want to drive around and get my ass kicked to salons and spas and nail salons over and over again. I've gotten thrown out of more salons than I actually had as accounts, and I said, there's just got to be a better way. And I love technology, and I always love to teach myself things. So I taught myself how to code, built the site, built the marketplace. We had access to every brand you can think of, and great timing, access, relationships, and a little bit of luck. We created a really good mousetrap for bringing people all over the world to us. And then I had the beauty industry under my control, opposed to wondering what the hell I was going to do. So I started to learn I have say in what I'm going to do and how I'm going to orchestrate. If someone's telling me no, it doesn't mean that my approach was wrong, but the industry was right. And so I just reworked it, refocused on where I should be. And 20 years later, now I get to work and live out of 20 cities around the world. You mentioned some of the great industries that I'm involved with, and what I really love to do is take everything I've learned to this date, and even speaking with you, I get to learn things, and apply it to working with startups, even up to Fortune 500 companies, in building sustainable businesses. I'm not a fan of unicorns. I'm not a fan of the idea of what's a future valuation going to be. I like real businesses that produce real positive earnings and a multiplier of those earnings that value that business that's sustainable. If you look at a lot of public companies, the Facebooks, the Snapchats, the Ubers of the world, they IPO'd at ridiculous valuations. the people that bought that stock at that IPO took years to get it back to where they originally bought it if they held it, because the value was not sustainable. I like the idea of real tangible businesses. I like the idea of helping, guiding businesses to succeed. It's a simple philosophy if you take out the idea of greed, ego, pride. The goal is to help a company succeed. The goal is to secure and build a safe place for the employees, build a safe, secure place for the investors, and protect the founders. I love protecting founders. I'm a founder. And when a founder does this routine of, oh, I got to go out and raise money. Okay, I get it. What's your company worth? I think it's worth $10 million. Okay, maybe it is. Maybe it's worth more. I get to come in and say, yeah, let's say you're worth 10. Now take what I've built, and let's look at things that I can just pair you up with to make you worth 20 million, make you worth 50 million, make you worth 100 million. But more importantly, how are you going to make money? Because if you raise money at 10 million, let's say you raised $5 million at 10 million, yep. You gave away half your business, and you run out of money because you're not making money, and then you got to go and raise money again, and then you run out of money, and then that's what people are used to. It drives me crazy. And then at some point, those founders are working for somebody else. They don't even control or own their own company anymore.
And you're digging yourself out of a hole. It never made sense to me.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Like you start from the bottom. Like you're giving away control, and that we just took the opposite approach. I didn't even know this. Like this is why what I love is we just met, in the last 30 minutes. So a lot of this is like this is just a normal conversation we're gonna have.
Let's do it.
And that was something that was vastly different from us, right? So going to a top 3 entrepreneurial school, and that's where I met the other co-founder in college. When you got to this category called the Founders Club, and you had to work, you had to get either had a certain amount in investments or you had to win a certain amount in competitions. I took the business competitions, I loved it, right?
Yeah.
But it seemed like everyone, and especially in tech, right? And I understand that the models have to almost apply in certain ways to the industry. Some of my closest buddies, all 30, under 30 guys in college, and I saw them giving it up. And I guess for me, maybe I had a little bit of a head start in one way. I didn't know more than them, but I had a couple companies prior. Now, did they succeed? No. But were they failures? No. Learned a ton, right? Yeah. And I realized, wow, I don't think I want to live the traditional life, because at this time it was like really cool to get funding, right? Like this whole Silicon Valley lifestyle started growing, and becoming an entrepreneur. This is probably, give you context, it was probably like Shark Tank just came out within a year or two, and then they started attracting like the average American household. Like I can start a company. Yeah. What I love though is you are a people's person. I'm sure maybe you haven't had a friend say it, but I'm just from our interactions, you are down to earth as hell, and I'm so excited you're here. We're going to jump all over the place, but one of the best questions that I've realized this week, and we've had some good conversations, what is the number one trait you've gotten from both parents that you have today that applies to business, that applies to why you are a social seller? And again, the social seller is about being the highest quality communicator, right?
Absolutely.
Because it goes beyond sales, and it's about living a congruent life, just like you said. It gets rid of ego. It embraces who we are. We embrace our authentic self, which I know I'm still looking for, but I'm getting a lot closer. And you're living it. So yeah, I'd love to hear, for you, what is the number one trait that you take from your mother and your father, or whoever your guardians were being raised?
Yeah, well, with my father, I love that anybody would take his call. And I learned how important that was. And a lot of reasons that I learned was paid his bills. That's the biggest thing. If you're paying your bills on time, whether they're your vendors, your suppliers, and you're helping people grow, they'll gladly jump and take your call. And he always respected everybody, which is something that I definitely like to carry on with me. Because I don't care if someone has $1 or $1 billion or they're negative $1 billion. To me, you're just a person. We're all the same. We all do exactly the same things the same way. We're all people. Some people, I think, are very lost when they just completely surround themselves with what they think materialistic things are, what values them. I think that's a sad life to live, because in that mindset, you're always looking for the next nicest thing. You're never happy, in my opinion. With my dad, a hardworking guy, took good care of his family, provided for all of us. We never wanted for anything. But I will say one of the negative things about someone like my father is that I wanted to do better than he did, and he was very successful. And if a son-father relationship, it's just natural for a son to want to do better than their father. But it's a very awkward situation because there's still personalities there. I don't care if there's blood or not. Like, you have to know how to embrace your father's success, allow him to be involved in your life, but you also want to be your own person and make your own decisions. So it's a lot of work, that relationship. And you know, I believe people. I look at people like we have X amount of gasoline in the tank. The day is 24 hours long. Like, where am I going to spend that fuel? I don't want to spend it with trying to make two personalities click, and that's exhausting. I need to spend it on things that I value, that I love, and that I want to succeed. I want to move forward. I want to progress. I want to learn. I'm answering your question extremely longly, but
no, I love this. Keep going. No, because you were bringing up so many sub questions that I'm just excited to bring up.
All right, good. Just interrupt me anytime. With my mom, another tough person to have as a mother. I mean, she never wanted for anything my dad's success. She didn't. Yeah, she stayed home. I mean, she took care of 4 kids.
Yeah, full time was 4 kids.
Four great kids. We're all good people. You know, there's really no problems as far as the kids. You know, a lot of families issue like drug addictions or loss. Like, just 4 good kids.
Yeah.
And then having a mother with a husband, her husband, that was very successful, and she didn't want anything. Like, she didn't want diamonds. She didn't care what car she drove. She just loved her family. She wanted her kids happy. She wanted her kids healthy. She wanted her kids safe. And then I'm like, oh, I want that. You can't find that in today's world. It's very difficult. So then, you know, like, as growing up, a high school kid, I want a girl that's like doesn't want anything. Well, I grew up in Monmouth County. Every girl, they dream about just driving around a Ferrari and a BMW and living in.
Monmouth County
This is Monmouth County.
See, Northeast region to me is uncharted territory.
Oh my gosh! So I'm so every time I'm like, even it could have been the greatest girl in the world, but the minute that I saw somebody that liked material things, I was like, oh, I don't like this.
Amen.
But that's not nice because they were probably all good girls.
No, exactly. This is something I'm literally dealing with now is moving out here, right? There's another level. Yeah. Now, you've lived out here. You've loved San Diego for a long time. Yeah. Would you call it your getaway? Now, I know you've had meetings nonstop all day, every day for the last
No, my getaway, my favorite city in the world is Nashville. So I went in 2012. I went to Nashville for meetings. We bought a home, and I stayed. I didn't leave. I just fell in love with the city, fell in love with the people, genuine. And you probably can relate to this, or how you grew up. Billionaires are driving pickup trucks. They didn't care about any of that. Now it's getting a lot more flashy because people from LA, New York are moving to Nashville. The city's on fire. Yeah. But before it was just hardworking people, down-to-earth people, and you would never know what they had or what they didn't have. I did gain 50 pounds living there and eating biscuits and fried chicken and gravy, but besides that...
Incredible brunch. Every day, every Saturday, same thing. Biscuits, gravy, add some chicken.
Some fried chicken and waffles on that. But San Diego's beautiful. So you asked me before how I got here. Yeah. I'm very open to life, which is good and bad. Being open to life puts you at risk to meeting the wrong people, and I've done that. I'm too trusting as a person. So you have to learn, okay, how do I be me, have my guard up, but people don't know that I have my guard up, because you want to be open. You want to have opportunities and friendships and business relationships be able to thrive. And it can't thrive if you're closed off or if you're bitter. And I've gotten used, screwed, abused by people that I would call dear friends, people that I would do anything for. And I knew I could go one of two ways. Do I become bitter and angry? Well, then how do you go through life? Now you're
carrying the baggage.
Yeah.
Right? Now you are.
And you can't deal with regular life if you're dealing with your own internal demons and angry all the time. That's not a good way to live. So my mindset is I thank people that screw me or that do me harm, because they taught me that I have a vulnerability. Now I look at that person's characteristics or that person's traits, and if I meet another person like them, I immediately know, oh, that's like so-and-so. I need to stay away from them. I'm not going to invite them into my life. And then I pray for people. Simple prayer. Because the better that they do, I know for sure I will never, ever hear from them again. So I want them to do well. I want them to succeed. I want them to go have everything they want and desire, because I know they'll be out of my life forever. Yep. So that's the way that I'm wired now. And it's good. It's healthy for me. It's a good mindset to have.
You grew up in the Northeast. Now, where I grew up in the middle of the country, in the Midwest, there's a couple creeds, right? And never want to be overly salesy. That's the quickest way to make a lot of people feel uncomfortable. Again, this is like rural America, right? Yeah. What they call the backbone of America. Now, I love it. I'm so happy I grew up there. There's pros and cons, just like you're talking about. What blows my mind is that you grew up in a place that, for most people, my best guess you wouldn't be this humble. Now, that immediately goes to the environment you're raised in, your caregivers, and that's immediately why I wanted to start this conversation. Just you have worked on yourself, man. I know you have, because just your tonality, to your eye contact, to the confidence, you have worked on that ego, like in at least embracing it. And this is something I'm working on. Now, something that I'm glad you touched on. Like, I get free consulting on this. Something that I realized too is I'm a very open and trusting person. Yeah. There's a spiritual component to my life. And the more I understand myself, the happier I'm living. And I'm realizing like this whole magnet of life, like for whatever reason, the last 4 months, life is crazy. Like
Good.
Things are just being pulled. And
Good.
I always read about it, but I didn't understand it. Now, there are times that I'll get feedback from people I look up to or mentors or something like, Conor, you're just be careful. They don't want to see me get hurt, right? Yeah. I haven't really been hurt. In my mind, and I think this is probably a little bit of ego, I think I have a really good filter on people. And I think it comes down to an energy space. There's people that are really good communicators that could probably bypass that. For you, what has, like, after being fucked over, man,
yeah.
I haven't been there yet. Now, I want to avoid it, and I know adversity
I say don't
breeds growth.
avoid it.
No, exactly. Don't avoid it. But what advice can you give to, like, for you, being humble, being open, and just bringing people in? But, like, can you give maybe an example at a high level of like what that looked like, right? So it was someone close in your life. Was it a business opportunity? Was it someone that just took over your trust? Because you could see you as a nice human, right?
This is what happens. It's a problem. And I still can't avoid it, but now I have procedures in place. I'll meet somebody like you. We meet.
Yep.
We hit it off. I don't go out looking for a friend because, I don't know, I'm content. But I love to meet somebody wonderful. I love to have new experiences. I love to vibe with somebody. Because the way that I think is a little bit lonely. Because I'm old soul, old school. I should have been around in the 20s. Like, that's just the way that my mind works. So I'm surrounded by all kinds of people, but nobody really thinks the way that I think. Well, let me get to my point. So we go out for lunch or something. Yeah. And you're telling me about what you want to do. I tell you about my journey. And then something happens where what I want to be a friendship or a new contact turns into a business thing. So I'm not saying that you did this, but you would then ask me, hey, do you want to help me do X, Y, and Z? Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden it goes from, I thought we were just hanging out and being friends, and then it turns into a business discussion, and then I have a problem, and Oscar and I talked about this a little bit before. I don't want to say no to people. I feel like we're all here to help one another. So then it goes from what could have been a nourishing, nice friendship that evolved into maybe doing a business thing, and then it goes right into business. So I didn't really have a chance to learn about you. You didn't really have a chance to learn more about me. And then maybe I don't agree with your business tactics or what you want to accomplish, but I still want to help you. I'm getting to my point here. It's just that it always goes from a friendship to a business where my guard was down, and then I'm in a moment where I'm like, I look back, I'm like, what the hell just happened? I can't even get out of this now. I'm involved.
Now there's the personal too.
Yeah,
right?
And then I've also introduced them to whether they're my banking partners, potential other partners that I have, and it just gets too intertwined. And then it's not the person's fault. It was my own fault for not saying, okay, we could talk about this, go through these procedures. So what I have now is there's legal, there's compliance, there's a private security arm, there's accounting. So I said, sure, no problem. Go through this procedure. If you're legitimate and you're real, you'll go through the procedure. If you're full of shit and you have nothing to offer and you're just making up stuff and you're trying to use me or you're trying to get access to me, then I won't hear from you again. But it sucks that I have that, but I need that because it gives another level of a filtration process to people that want to work with me, because I will work with anybody. It's just who I am. But I can't afford to let the wrong person into my inner circle anymore. It's hurt me and abused me too many times.
Yep. No, and man, I relate. Can you just give like a very condensed version of like someone that fucked you over, like just a notable? And you don't have to go. I don't want names or anything, but like an example, because you're at a level that I look up to. Yeah. And anyone that comes on this podcast is just legitimately, for selfish reasons, I just want to have a conversation.
I appreciate that.
And yes, we've had a call together and we definitely vibed really quick. And you are humble, man. Any kind of example, just because this helps me.
I'll give you the most disheartening example.
And what age were you when this happened?
Yeah, this was February of 2016.
36? No, 34.
34. Yeah. So I in Nashville, just landed. And I foolishly, it's a Sunday. I'm like, I gotta finish this meeting. I gotta do a meeting. Land, go home, unpack, head out. So I'm driving on a highway in Nashville, and a drunk driver, 4:00 in the afternoon. This woman on drugs and drunk, and like an F-150 just hits me head on. And you know, it's one of the weirdest things. If I don't know how many people listening or watching, and when you're in a car accident, there's a lot of weird things happen if you're able to survive it. I can't remember the sound. It drives me crazy. Like I cannot hear the sound. That's bizarre.
The sound. Explain.
The sound of the car. Happened? Yeah, it just drives me wild that I can't go back and like hear it. You know, that's just a little weird.
Is it's set because of the action and the emotion?
I don't know. It's freaky. So there's a lot of weird things happen, and I don't want to take. This could be a 2-hour story. So this woman hits me head on. It's a 2-lane on both sides. Head on. Yeah. It's a 4-lane highway, 2 lanes on each side.
She's driving a truck.
Driving a truck. I'm in a sedan. 4:00 in the afternoon. So she hits me head on, and I spin across the other side of the highway. I want to just give you a little bit more of the story. I don't want to harp on a car accident.
We need to.
So I can't remember the sound, which is again freaky. I kind of like get out of the car, not knowing what's going on. And what I do remember really oddly was that this car was all alone on a very busy highway coming at me. And what's important about that is when she hit me and I spun across to her lane, it's 2 lanes, so ideally another car should have also hit me. That would just be reality because that's what happens on a highway. And my airbags already went off. So I'm like, that was weird. Why was that one car? Why was it just one car? Miles back was a couple that was behind this car, blocking the 2 lanes, calling 911, saying that this car is driving erratic. I'm like, who? And those people then came. They were the first people to come get me out of the car. And I learned what they were doing as I was coming to. I'm like, how did you know to? Like, I wouldn't know to do that. I think I'm a pretty smart guy. I would call 911, but I don't think I would block traffic.
No.
And I'm like, and then these people just kind of disappeared. I'm like, yeah, I'm spiritual. I mean, these people were angels.
Yeah.
These were angels. So, again, I'm going on a tangent. I'm not answering your question, but at that moment, I dealt with post-concussion issues. My whole world turned upside down. This is getting to me to answer your question. I had people in place for many years running operations of my businesses that had no right being there. I put them there because I wanted them there. Yeah. I liked them as people, but as the business model that I had was completely wrong. These were people that I helped get cars. These were people that I co-signed on mortgages so they can get houses. These are people that I was always last to eat too. And I will tell every entrepreneur out there, and they look at me sideways, do not be last to eat. Do not. I refuse to believe that anymore. For 15 years, if there was any crumbs at the end of the year, I would take it. But my mindset was, I'll keep reinvesting into the business. Reinvesting into the business. Well, when my world fell apart, if I was first to eat, being that I know I don't spend money on anything, there's nothing that I want. I have that side of my mom in me where I'm happy with what I got.
Yeah.
When that happened and I was first to eat for 15 years, I would have enough resources and money there to be able to help me get through this. These people that I'm talking about, I couldn't get an hour from them. Just disappeared.
And they're on your team?
Yeah. If they didn't know that they were not getting their check next week, they up and bounced. And again, this goes back to what I said before. I'm like, okay, am I going to be dealing with I couldn't do 2 + 2. It took me like 20 seconds to add 2 + 2. Like, how am I going to run all these businesses and realize that I was the person doing everything to begin with, and everybody else was getting rewarded and getting fed. And I said, well, I can't be angry on top of trying to rebuild, on top of trying to figure out how am I going to fix all this. So it was hell. It was absolute hell. So, there's a lot of other examples that I can give you that everybody's been used to, where someone stole from me, someone used my social security number to go and get a bank loan. Like, there's
on your team,
people that were in my inner circle.
Some in your circle. Yeah. I mean,
it just I'm like, well, that's weird. But I also have I don't know. You can look at criminal behavior and say, my God, criminals are brilliant. The problem is they get greedy and they get caught. But criminal behavior is pretty freaking smart. I won't take away from somebody's tactics to try to hurt somebody, because do it to me all day long, because I want to learn. I'm going to keep growing. I'm going to keep evolving, and teach me all I can, because if there's more that someone can take from me, I want to know as early on as possible. Yeah. I want to make sure that I have systems in place where I'm like, I know what that person's up to. Like, you need it. That's why, I don't want you to ever be negative or feel like you're sad or your emotions are hurt because someone took advantage of you. But I'm telling you, the more that it happens, it's you played sports. It's like going to the batting cages for 10 hours and working on your swing. The same thing applies to business. You need to experience things. You need to experience different personalities. You need to experience different situations so you know how to handle them. Yeah. And a lot of business people, especially during COVID, and people that I idolize. I never really had a mentor, but if I said, "Oh, I would love for that woman or guy to be a mentor," they couldn't handle anything during COVID. And I'm like, how are you running conglomerates? I've spoken with professional athletes that went in the tank, musicians and entertainers that I thought could rule the world. Just nothing. Like they had no idea what to do. They were lost. So it's really mind-boggling when you look at people that you idolize and then a situation that you know you can handle, and you're watching someone that you want to emulate. They can't handle it. It's weird. Damn.
I can tell in the tone that you explain it. You've been hurt a few times, man, and this means so much to me because I see how life is picking up really fast, and like just very recent. It hits home to me in a different way right now because for whatever reason, it's like the universe. Like there's a reason why we're meeting, right? We had talked about, whenever you did make it to San Diego, we were gonna hopefully meet, and I know we're both busy professionals. You're on a whole nother level. You work on weekends. I don't know how you do it. Like we'll talk about that in a second. How you figure out balance? Because if I worked on a Sunday, I don't know.
First of all, I did not figure out a balance.
You didn't? Okay. No, we're gonna dive into that. The biggest takeaway for me though is coming from the Midwest or coming from just whatever. You can come from anywhere in the world, and if you come with a humble upbringing, and that's also what fascinates me with you, right? There are a lot of people that grow up in any degree of what I've seen. My observations have been a lot of times if you come from success, that can almost create more problems for the individual, right? And
silver spoon
drug
mentality,
abuse to obesity to it does something subconsciously. It's telling this well, I've always kind of had it and I know there's something in my back pocket versus the hungry individual, which I know is Oscar, it's you, us three, and why we're here today on a Saturday morning before you have your next sprint of meetings. And we have, I don't know if you call it a bite, you call it grit, you call it drive. For me, it's always been, and Oscar and I have talked about this, it's always been, what if there's a big part of me that doesn't ever want to win the lottery, right? And I legitimately mean that because I don't want anyone to ever say I got a handout.
Right.
And that might be tied to ego, I think, if I can look and I really dive in and where it's seated, right?
Right.
That's how I was raised. You grew up with a role model. I mean, your dad, right? We become our environment. My biggest takeaway here is that you have the filter. Adversity is a beautiful thing. Adversity is when we grow the most.
Yeah.
Adversity is sad, angry, pissed, whatever. But you are a mature professional that's been through it enough, and you see the bigger picture. Not only the life that you're going to live, you've already grown. I mean, you've grown. You're working in 150 different joint ventures, industries in countries all around the world, right? But I meet you, and it seems like we could have grown up together. I feel like you're my bigger brother, right?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm your younger brother. Let me touch on one thing.
Yes, please do.
Please win the lottery. And who gives a shit what anybody thinks?
Just don't tell anyone. I guess if that does happen.
Help people. Go out there and help people. Help Oscar with help people.
Oscar's like, fuck that shit.
Yeah. Your first thing is, I never say hurt people. So I want you to care about what people think if you're hurting them. But you cannot go through life wondering if someone's going to talk good or bad about you because they're going to do it regardless.
Yeah.
The best thing is for you to succeed and do what makes you happy. And success may not be making a bunch of money. Success for you might be doing these great podcasts, talking with people, making sure you have a roof over your head, food in the refrigerator, car if you need it. To each their own. I don't judge, but win the lottery and help people and forget if someone says that you got it easy because who gives a shit? You know your story.
Yeah. You're right. I still am not going to tell anyone.
Well, I'll tell
you guys. Yeah. You bring me to New York, and we do it there, and that's where you tell everyone.
Get the
right?
big golf check.
I love it. Now, oh my gosh, Brian, there's a handful of ways that I want to take this, but I want to dive in because on the adversity topic, adversity creates the human we are, the professional, and anyone that is in business and really creating something that's a lot bigger than them. Product or service goes well beyond it, right? There's a deep why. What is the lowest point you've ever been in life, regardless of age? And I want to get detailed. I would love to just hear exactly where that was.
Yeah.
Age and like what brought you to this place, and then how did you break through?
Yeah, well, same story with the car accident. That was the beginning of it was the beginning of the top of the lowest part of my life, and it just spiraled down.
And this is 5 years ago.
Yeah. It took me up until recently to fix everything. It took me up until recently to. Yeah, I'll go back to the accident. I am so grateful that I took that hit because I'm still here. That woman could have killed somebody. Woman could have ruined a family.
Yeah. And
the other thing I joke about is maybe we're all dead when I'm talking to people, but I think we're all alive. So I'm glad I'm still here. So I would take the hit again and again. I want to put that out there. And the other thing is my model was broken. So if that didn't happen, I would have continued to live the life that I was doing and maybe growing companies, maybe continuing to make money and do great things, but my model was still wrong. And at some point, I believe it was going to catch up to me. And I had the wrong people there. You gotta surround yourself with good people. You really do. And if someone does you wrong, at the end of the day, the older you get, it's on you.
It is.
You allowed it to happen. And you have to, I'm not saying you, I'm saying in general, you just have to accept, okay, I put that person there. I allowed them to make decisions that affected my life. I got to make sure I don't do that again. And it's not the person's fault. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know what trials and tribulations or desperate times call for desperate measures. The last year, everybody's all of a sudden becoming business coaches. Everybody's a business consultant. Everybody's like, they're trying to figure out.
Everyone. That's the people that don't have experience.
Everyone.
Right? Like, I did the weekend course with McGraw-Hill. Like, what, a textbook company? No, like, seriously, bring me into your company, $5K a month. Like,
everybody.
I'll change your life.
Oh, everybody. It's amazing. So that was the beginning of the worst part of my life. And I think I spent 30 seconds feeling sorry for myself, which was 30 seconds too long. And then I said, all right, I'm in this, I'm talking business-wise, not talking personal. Business-wise, I'm in this alone. I understand it's a kill or be killed world, but I can still kill or be killed and smile. I can still kill or be killed and be happy and feel self-worth and work and love people because I'm a people person. I want to connect A and B. But what I did for so long was I connected A and B, and I was left in the dust.
Yeah.
And I assumed people would do the right thing. They don't. There's a term I think I've coined, and I continue to talk about it. It's called business amnesia. Business amnesia is when I connect people that I know are going to do great things. I see as clear as day. And then all of a sudden, BCC'd on the email or the text or WhatsApp group I created, they went off and they did a separate one. And then they go and do a great thing, or they go and do a great deal together, and they forget. They coincidentally forget. How did we meet? I don't know. They all know, but they don't admit it. And then they go and they run through the forest together, whatever. But now I connect people again with our procedures. I'm part of the upside. Everybody knows my position. I'm not a broker. I'm not a commission guy. So I don't want that out in the market. I help businesses grow. So we take what I've built, we take my companies and my relationships and my assets, and we pair them with the opportunity that I see. So I invite people into my world now. Yeah. It's a much different situation than me being invited into theirs and then me being left out. So again, back to my model, that's what I've created. And now people understand each other's role. They understand what my role is. They understand we're using my resources. I'm helping you grow. I'm helping you become successful. So I'm part of the team. I'm a team member. I'm not an outside guy. I'm not working for a commission. I'm going to help you grow this thing, and I'm part of the upside, and we're all going to benefit from it. And I love it. I love helping companies grow, but I also love the idea of I learn how to value myself. That's a very difficult thing to think of. You know how to value a company. You know how to value these microphones. You bought them. You know what they're worth. But how do you value a person? It's kind of an awkward thing to think about.
People like you and me, we like the intangible, right? It's an energy thing that you can't really put words to.
No, but you need to value yourself for many reasons. It's not about the money. It's about feeling self-worth. It's about someone saying, you know what, I want to work with you, Brian, and I think I can't pay you a lot of money, but here's X amount of dollars, and you take it. It's important to take it because you earned it. Yeah. Your life lessons, your experiences, what you've been through. If someone's coming to you for advice or to work with you, then there's a price tag on you. Yeah. And you need to take it. There's so much, whether you need it or not is irrelevant. You need to take it because you're valuable. You can't leave a grocery store with stuff without paying for it. I mean, you could steal it, But what's the difference? And I'm a commodity. There's value inside of me. It's the way that my brain works. It's the access that I have. It's the relationships that I have, and it's my time.
Yeah. Do you value your time in like an hour amount? Not like your one-on-one coaching or consulting, but I've learned that a lot of successful people, they put a number to it, because the second you put a number to it, it's almost an easier filter. And really, that's what I'm coming to learn, is the people I look up to, like yourself, right? The most successful people, they don't have to be that smart. They can have a high IQ or a high EQ and a low IQ, right? Because I think that's where I lean. Not that I have a low IQ. I was lucky to get through business school and life's good. But EQ is what I play. I feel energy and I love it, and I bring people together. And then you have teams around.
Yeah.
Bringing this full circle, it starts as lowest point in adversity, and it goes back to this accident. Thank you for sharing this, man. I did not know this at all. And for it to be so recent, right? A lot of times when we bring up these conversations, it's like how it affected them. Usually it's childhood. Usually it's teenage years or college. And it's like, man, I love that. Adversity has made you the person you are. Because you sit here and I feel like I could ask you any question and try to make you feel uncomfortable. Obviously,
it's not going to happen.
Do that, right? Yeah, I can tell, right? You're in control of your emotions because you've gone through adversity.
Yeah.
And because you've taken, this is the big part, you've taken full ownership.
I always do. And for some reason, again, I'm not saying this for a pity party, but things were always just harder for me. And I learned that at like 8 years old.
Though, man? Because like,
I went through.
I didn't have any. Like, I didn't grow up with like anyone in business or anything. You know, like my dad's a farmer. My mom, para ed, right? So I'm saying this because anyone that might be watching this, that's like, hey, I grew up. My dad is a construction worker and my mom like is a school teacher, right? Like that. There's a lot of people that listen to this that are from the middle of the country, and if they were to look at it and go, well, yeah, it would probably be easy if I had a successful father, right? And a mom that didn't have to work growing up.
Right.
What would you say to that?
I don't know. I know what my household was like.
Yeah.
And so I'm the youngest of four, and my siblings are 10, 12, and 13 years older. So I grew up too early. I watched them all do what would get them in trouble and make their mistakes, and I didn't do that. So I became too old for my age, which again led me on this path. I loved hanging out with 60, 70-year-old people, and that's what I wanted to. That's who I wanted to be around. I wanted to be around my grandparents, and again, being so young, I lost them too early. So I dealt with a lot of loss. I realized even prior to the accident that we're only here for a little bit of time, and it could be taken away at any moment.
Tomorrow's not guaranteed.
No, when I leave here, it's not guaranteed. It's just a reality. Who knows?
This podcast isn't guaranteed.
We might not finish this podcast. Who knows what could happen?
Could you imagine that timing? We just, today's the day. We had our Achilles coffee.
I forgot your question. Oh, so my siblings had it a lot harder than I did. We didn't really have money around the house until I was 9 or 10. So I grew up more with than my siblings, but always surrounded. My dad worked 15, 16 hours a day. It wasn't like it was easy.
Yeah.
We had a great mom, and we have a great mom, and she made sure that we had love in the household, and there was food on the table, and there was nothing crazy going on. But I always worked, so my dad was like, you got to work. So I'd be in his warehouse packing orders at 8 years old. I'd be helping he had a nail care manufacturing company. I'd be filling little bottles, and I loved it. And I was like, I learned the value of creating something from nothing. Like, there was all these components, I put it together, and I made a product that was shipped out. It was cool as hell. Then I was always mowing our lawn. I mean, it was the funniest thing was when I finished the lawn at 10 years old, I had to start back to where I began. So it never stopped. Like, the minute I finished, I had to go back to where I started because I was doing it after school. And whatever, everybody has a story of chores and stuff. But I was bred to work. I will go dig a hole. I'll go fill gas tanks. I don't care what I do, but I have to be doing something. I have to be being a viable member of society. I want to have some self-worth. All these companies and what I'm doing and all these great people I get to meet, it's only because I've been working my whole life. And when I go into a room, I get invited into a room with some really substantial people, I'm invited for a reason, and I realize that I have a lot of worth. So I don't have a rate card per hour that I work, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I avoid what could be the next greatest thing. And if a startup has, I don't know, $500, then they want to bring me on, then that's what I do. I don't negotiate back. Just have to value me at something. It's not $1. It's not 100,000, but I can't be taken advantage of. And if you compensate me, whatever you can that doesn't hurt you or doesn't hurt the company, now I'm officially part of the company. I can speak on behalf of the company. There's more of a contractual agreement where now this is something that I believe in. This company is valuing me for my time at the most they can. The caveat is, as we grow, I grow with it. As this company becomes more powerful, more successful, the monetary value increases, I, as well as all the management and all the investors, grow with it. So I just need to be valued. It's important. It's important because probably for me, because I didn't do it for 15 years. Like I was paying everybody else that I thought had my best interest at heart. They only had their bank account at heart. They didn't care if it was me.
It's usually a very individualized world. And I think that's a beauty that most people outside of business don't really understand is like the people that are usually, that I tend to find, and I go as far as saying, again, making up percentages, right? But just from the people I've experienced, I'd say like 80 to 90% of the most successful people that I just look up to, right? So not just like you had business success, I'm going to look up to you also based on your values and your actions are going to speak, right? Like NLP teaches, right? Linguistics, like you can look at how someone communicates and you can start to understand where they're at in their growth. And you are a very selfless individual. And that's why I wanted to dive into not only some of the adversity. The takeaway where we started this question was, growing up with a degree of success. Now, I'm glad that you give context to it because I have a good feeling that because it didn't happen until you're 9 or 10 years old, that like it started to make, let's just say the funds increased for the family. Your dad hit a level that started. But because you were 9, you're at an age that you were in this environment and you saw how hard he worked, but then you saw the trade-off in what happens when you do work. I think that's something special. Maybe your siblings they weren't in the household, my guess is just from the age difference when this was happening, right?
No.
Have you ever...
Yeah, no, you're saying, now that you got me thinking about it, what was really awkward for me, which, I shouldn't say awkward, what was unique about me was that, so I grew up at a younger age with really nothing, so I went to a public school and made a ton of friends. Then my dad's work started to pay off, and then they put me into a Catholic school. So then I was in a whole different level of affluent kids, and some snobby, some cool like me, I thought. But I never had a clique. I played baseball as my passion. I missed it every day. But so I obviously hang out with the baseball team, but I would go hang out with the kids on the computer, and I would play computer stuff with them. I'd go hang out with the basketball kids. I'd go hang out with I don't want to give any terms that aren't agreeable, but every group
Just
of people. No, I'm not going to do it. I don't.
Okay,
Oscar's going to clip it and it'll be out everywhere.
No, we'll hook that. That'll be our best marketing piece, right? Brian said it. No.
Every group you can think of, I hung out and I respected everyone. And if someone was being bullied, not that I was Clark Kent and a superhero, but I would go there and say, "Cut it out! What are you doing?" And not to boast, and I became president of the senior class. And it was really cool. Was that Catholic school I went to, they all came from the Catholic elementary school. So they all they already had years of friendships, right? I get thrown in there, don't know anybody, but respect everybody and make great friends. And then all of a sudden I'm leading a class. Pretty cool. And not that title does anything, but these are people, looking back on it, I have the ability to connect with people. I have the ability to, I don't want to say lead. I like to work with a team. But I like to work with a team that has direction. Whoever's given the direction is important because you want to make sure you're directing them to safe and secure and successful path. You don't want to direct people into failure. So learning who I am, how I can connect with people, and how I want to help people, it's all finally clicking now. But it's been one hell of a ride of understanding what is my purpose, how can I continue to do things and ensure that I can support it. I hate the idea of money. I really feel like money's relatively new in the history of human beings. Like,
it is.
We need basic things: shelter, food, and not get eaten by lions. But so I never look at money, and that was a problem for me. I never really, not that I didn't respect it, but I didn't understand it. I didn't get the importance of money. Probably because I grew up and I always had home, always had food, always had everything. And I guess I maybe thought that it can always go out and get money, but doing what I'm doing and having all these people depend on me, all these companies depend on me, it's so important to make sure that you make money. You need it. That's the fuel.
It's literally the bloodline to a company. Right?
You can't get away from it. And not the idea like we spoke about before of, if we run out of money, we'll just raise more money again. I don't like that model at all. So long story long is I love working with people. I can connect with, I think, anybody. And I was also lost for a long time because I went from hanging out with regular people that I loved and grew up with, now going to country clubs with these kids from high school and, being in this, like, where do I fit in? I'm like, I realize I fit in the middle. I can go this way, I can go that way. I don't care what you have. Just be a nice person. So it was awkward for a while, trying to figure out what's my place.
So you're senior class president, grew up in a public school, thrown into this Catholic school.
Yeah.
Just with you saying that, it's like if I could redo, I'd bring him and be like, Dad, I'll work on the weekends. Just put me in a private school. 'Cause I want to test this, right? Like you would think in a very similar, well, you did it, right? So in my mind, it's a little probably competitiveness, but it's like, dang, throw me in that environment. Yeah, I feel like I could handle it. Yeah. I was pushed religion heavy growing up, right? My whole upbringing. Now, I was baptized twice, right? Parents were divorced before I turned 1. And grew up with my dad on the farm. It was just my dad and I. My dad, we were Lutheran. He never went to church. Never went to church. But goddamn, Conor, you better be up. You're going to church. Drop me off. Dad, you're not going to come in today? So he didn't live in congruence, which almost, I had this distaste in a way. Because it's like, Dad, my friends are playing basketball today. Like, and then my mom's side, at a young age, it was Catholic, like the old school Catholic. Like my grandma Carol, I love her to death. She is the energy bunny, what do they call it? Like the Energizer Bunny in the family. Like, you've never met a Grandma Carol in your life. And anyone that knows Grandma Carol, love you to death. Grandpa Joe, props, but Grandma Carol, you have made our family better. And she would look at me and like, at a young age, if I was not, my eyes directly, this is what I was told, is like my eyes had to make sure it was on whatever, Pastor Marty or like whatever, and I didn't know at this point. I didn't know until freshman year of college that I had ADHD. I'm not going to define it or anything, but it's like, I've always been a person that likes to move, like even sitting here, right? Like something has to move. So I was not very good at it. And then one day she looked at me and she goes, you do that? Well, it was after a slap, right? Like, and it was a legit slap. And then my little rebellious self is like, oh, okay, well, how far can we push this limit? And we're in church, right? Like, but this is 7-year-old Conor, not a good version of me, a having fun version of me. And she goes, she motions at me, and there's like my sister or something in between us. Yeah. And then I felt like I had this little distance, and she goes, I could see the face. I hadn't seen this passion and fire in her eyes. And church is something she took very seriously. And she goes, she just whispers, and her mouth isn't even moving, but I hear what she's saying, and she goes, Conor, you stick that tongue on at me one more time, and I'm pulling my scissors out of my purse, and that tongue's gone. Oh, jeez.
In the house of the Lord.
Funny looking back. Grandma Carol, I love this. No, seriously, anyone in the family, she is a legend amongst, I don't know, legends, like whatever the next level would be. And I simply share that because it opened my eyes to I've been rebellious, and how I'm bringing this full circle is the rebelliousness and religion ended up coming full circle. Yeah. College allowed me to open my eyes, and for the first time, I wasn't living in the households that I grew up in, and I could finally like think on my own, and I was getting an education that I kind of got to choose, right? That was when I dove into spirituality, and we haven't talked about it, but I have a really good feeling. And for anyone else, because I bring this up, this is something that I've recently started to filter, and it's understanding like, okay, what are the indicators? I listen in your communication. When I hear individuals talk about, like one of the big hints is like the universe, right? Because I can talk about religion, but I see very successful people, whether they're religious or not, the way to encompass it is usually the universe. I look at your bracelets. I look at your style. Now, and then it's also an energy thing that I think just takes time, and I'm still figuring it out. Are you religious or spiritual? And what's the difference?
Spiritual. The difference, I think, between religion and spiritual is that religion has quotes and verses and whatever the Catholic Church wants to wants to remind you
I
of.
think she has headphones in, so you guys, just to give context,
Let's
right?
get her in.
This is grassroots. Hey, quick question. Hey, come here. Will you come say hi? Oh, I know you joined. You joined the team here, and I know you joined last week, right? So we see each other every morning, right? Because I sit over here.
Yes.
What was your first name again?
Veronica.
Veronica, beautiful.
Veronica, would you just come say hi really quick? It's okay if you don't want to.
I don't speak very well English,
Oh, your English is better than mine.
but it's hard for me to explain.
No, just, can you say, hello, I'm Veronica?
Yeah.
Just here, just real quick. We just want you to, because otherwise they hear a noise in the background and they want to know, who was this? Yeah. No, it's real quick. This goes nowhere. This is literally like a regional
What?
CNN
What do you
channel.
mean it goes nowhere?
Regional CNN channel. Hey, Veronica, I appreciate you. No, you're awesome. Thank you. And thank you for all the work you do. You keep this place clean, which enables the people that live here to work better. Appreciate you, Veronica.
Gracias, Veronica.
Yes. Happy Saturday. I love that you mentioned it because the second a fellow social person's like, let's bring her in, I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it. And then you have to respect it, right?
Always.
And
Always.
you have to feel people out, right? And that was also another level of trying to figure things out. I got to hand it back. So, religious or spiritual?
Yeah, so I'm spiritual with the religious foundation. I hope there is a heaven, because I'm going to be really pissed off if there's not, because all my decisions have led me to, you don't want to do things that put you in hell, right? That's just kind of it's at least how I was raised.
Isn't
I'm
that
sure.
fear-based in religion? Like, you better live this congruently.
Yeah, it's all fear-based. And there is nobody, honestly, if you don't forget about the 10 Commandments and the 7 deadly sins, there's some, obviously, if you kill somebody, you're probably going to go to hell, if it exists.
Yeah.
But in all of the rules of religion, if you were to look at all of them and what you're supposed to do and what gets you into heaven, I don't think anybody's up there.
I haven't met him yet. Even the
It's
pastors.
very tough to get in there. It's like, I guess, trying to get into the Bel Air Country Club. It just seems like it would be very difficult to get into heaven. So I am spiritual in the aspect of, I'm a golden rule kind of guy.
Treat others the way
yeah, it's
you wanna be
simple.
treated.
Now, there are people throughout my history that my decisions didn't benefit them.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart. And I have like this. I think like AA teaches this. Like, you got to go back and make amends. So like in my business career and my life, like I want to go back and like who did I harm indirectly? Who was a byproduct of decisions that I made? It really bothers me because I don't want to have anything out there energy-wise where someone's thinking, Brian's an asshole. Like,
Yeah.
I may or may not know that. Like, I want to make amends with anybody that I've done harm because I don't think that's just not me.
Yeah.
So that's a process that I'm going through. The spiritual side of me is just to make right by people. Funny scene with Steve Buscemi and Billy Madison. I don't know if you remember that movie with Adam Sandler, and he calls Steve Buscemi and says he's sorry for picking on him in high school.
Can you just give us like the improv on the second? 'Cause this is a good movie. Like, how's the conversation?
Anyway, he goes, I'm glad I called that guy because Steve Buscemi's character saved his life towards the end, and he shot. Yeah. So anyway, that scene sticks out to me because I think if you're alive, and you shouldn't just think of success and growth and that way. You should think of, well, who do I need to make things right with?
Yeah.
And be at peace. I think you need to be at peace, whether it's conscious or subconscious. It's important to take ownership in yourself and things that you may have done or that may have indirectly or directly caused somebody some discomfort. Make it right. No matter how uncomfortable it may be, make it right. And so that's something that I really want to focus on with this chapter of my life and try and throw as much good out there as I can. But answering your religion or spiritual question, I'm definitely more spiritual. I think it's important if I have kids one day that they're raised with some religious foundation. I think it's very important.